Welcome back to Wonders of Our Planet. Today, we're talking about the Mariana Trench. What do we know about it? It's the deepest place on the planet, somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, nearly 7 miles straight down. No sunlight reaches that far. You can't dive there without a pressurized submarine. James Cameron, yes, the one who made Titanic, went down there in 2012. And a few years later, another explorer photographed a plastic bag sitting on the bottom. But here's what most people don't realize. The trench is deeper than Mount Everest is tall. In its darkness, there are entire cities of life, with their own lights, their own predators, their own rules. And we've explored it less thoroughly than we've mapped the surface of Mars. What does the abyss hide? Who lives there? And why do we know less about it than we do about a planet 140 million miles away? Right here, right now, let's get into it. The Mariana Trench is a deep-sea trench in the western Pacific Ocean, just off the island of Guam, a U.S. territory. It exists because one tectonic plate, the Pacific Plate, is slowly diving beneath another, the Philippine Plate. This process is called subduction, and it is the planet swallowing its own crust. At the very bottom of that subduction sits the lowest point on Earth, Challenger Deep, 36,037 feet below sea level. To put that in perspective, if you place Mount Everest, all 29,032 feet of it, on the floor of the trench, its summit would still sit more than a mile underwater. The ocean itself is divided into 5 vertical zones, the sunlit epipelagic zone, down to 660 feet, the twilight mesopelagic zone, to 3,300 feet, the midnight bathypelagic zone, to 13,100 feet, the abyssal zone, to 19,700 feet, and the hadal zone, everything below. The hadal zone is the true abyss. Each depth layer is essentially a separate world. At 660 feet, some greenish light still filters through. Fish here are silvery, hunting by silhouette from above. At 3,000 feet, light disappears entirely. Many creatures here are blind, with disproportionately large jaws. At 10,000 feet, the world runs on bioluminescence. Roughly 80% of species in this zone generate their own light, flickering in absolute darkness like underwater fireflies. At 16,000 feet, water temperature holds just above freezing, around 34 degrees Fahrenheit. And at the very floor of the trench, pressure reaches 16,000 pounds per square inch. That is the equivalent weight of roughly 50 large passenger jets stacked onto a single person. Without a pressurized vessel, a human body would be crushed to the thickness of a sheet of paper in less than a second. So why is there any life down there at all? Because evolution found workarounds. The bodies of hadal fish are made almost entirely of water and gelatinous tissue, no air cavities, nothing for pressure to compress. Their bones are soft as cartilage. Their proteins are structurally distinct, folded to function only under extreme pressure. Bring one of these animals to the surface and those proteins unfold. The fish literally turns to mush on the deck before your eyes. That is why no aquarium in the world can keep true hadal zone creatures alive. Their eyes are either enormous or missing altogether. They have no scales, or scales so thin they are transparent. Their jaws are outsized, because food is scarce and whatever is caught must be swallowed whole. Some deep-sea sharks live to 400 years and do not reach sexual maturity until they are 150. Now here is where it gets remarkable. The trench and the surrounding deep ocean are home to creatures that should not exist by any ordinary logic. The blobfish, Cycrolutes marcetus, looks like an ordinary gray fish at depth. At the surface, it becomes the famous internet meme. A drooping, gelatinous, sorrowful face. The reason is simple. Its body is a jelly slightly less dense than seawater, engineered to float effortlessly under crushing pressure. Remove the pressure and it collapses. The deep-sea anglerfish dangles a bioluminescent lure filled with symbiotic bacteria directly in front of her jaws to draw in prey. The male is dozens of times smaller than the female. When he finds her, he bites into her side, fuses permanently with her tissue, and spends the rest of his existence as little more than a sperm-producing attachment. The Japanese spider crab has a leg span of up to 12 feet, the largest arthropod on the planet. Xenophyophores are single-celled organisms the size of a dinner plate resting on abyssal mud. One cell, visible to the naked eye. In 1977, near hydrothermal vents in the Pacific, scientists found something that rewrote biology. Entire ecosystems thriving in total darkness around superheated water reaching 750 degrees Fahrenheit, the so-called black smokers. 6-foot tube worms, ghost white crabs, giant clams, all living not on sunlight but on chemosynthesis, converting hydrogen sulfide into energy. It was a second biosphere on Earth that no one had suspected existed. Many scientists today seriously argue that life on our planet may have originated in places exactly like these. In 2019, Victor Vesova, a Texas investor and explorer, descended to Challenger Deep in his own custom-built submersible and spent 4 hours on the bottom. The samples he brought back included new amphipod species never before described by science. He also photographed two man-made objects on the floor, a candy wrapper and a plastic bag. Here is the number that puts everything in perspective. As of today, humanity has produced detailed maps of roughly 25% of the ocean floor. The surface of the moon, 100%. The surface of Mars, 99%. Two-thirds of our own planet is still a blank, or rather, a black map. More humans have walked on the moon than have reached Challenger Deep. Only 4 people have ever descended to its bottom. Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh in 1960, James Cameron in 2012, and Victor Vesova in 2019. 12 people have walked on the moon, 4 have reached the deepest point on Earth. Every additional mile of depth demands new alloys, new viewport glass, new engineering that barely exists. Sending a submersible to the bottom of the Mariana Trench costs more than launching a spacecraft to Mars. And that is exactly why every expedition into the deep ocean comes back with new species, because almost no one has ever looked. The abyss reminds us of an uncomfortable truth. We know more about the stars above our heads than the ocean beneath our feet. We build billion-dollar telescopes to peer at galaxies millions of light years away, while barely knowing what lives at the bottom of our own backyard. The farthest point from any human being is not Mars. It is 7 miles straight down, right beneath the keel of a ship. And the most important thing that comes back up from the abyss is not fear. It is a reminder. Our planet is still larger than we are. And, fortunately, still full of surprises. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button and subscribe. That's what keeps these videos coming. Thanks for watching Wonders of Our Planet.